The movie opens with a group of mourners heading into a cemetery for a burial. After placing the deceased in the grave, a man named Bahri uncovers the corpse's face, revealing its eyes are wide open. At that moment, lightning flashes across the sky, and soon after, heavy rain begins to fall. Hassan urges Bahri to get out of the grave and asks another man to lend a hand. Bahri grabs his hand and tries to pull himself out, but slips, falling back onto the body. And despite Hassan's plea to try again, Bahri insists, "We have to finish burying her today." He begins reciting prayers, the others joining in, and the scene cuts here. The film then shifts to that same night, showing movement in the grave before a hand emerges from the earth.
Comment. Subscribe to Recapss Horror.
4 days earlier, Hassan visits Bahri at his mechanic's garage in Jakarta. Hassan respectfully addresses him as ustadz, but Bahri tells him to use his name, saying he has lost the right to that title. He then inspects Hassan's car, but notices that the engine is still too hot and suggests they let it cool down for a while. Once inside, Hassan mentions that he heard Bahri was released from prison, then advises him to relax, saying that almost everyone knows about it, but he believes he is a good person. Bahri responds that it doesn't bother him at all, and then asks about Mekarwangi Village, to which Hassan replies that that's what brought him here, and he hopes Bahri can come home with him. Bahri asks what happened, and Hassan asks if he remembers Ratna. Bahri confirms he does, and Hassan explains that she has returned home but is now very ill, and he doubts she has much time left. Bahri inquires about her sickness, and Hassan replies that no one knows, saying she has been bedridden ever since she came home, and she starts screaming in pain every day at 6 p.m. Bahri says he can't come, explaining that Mekarwangi and Ratna are now part of the past, and perhaps there are others somewhere more capable of helping. Later, Bahri fixes Hassan's car, and when Hassan offers him money, Bahri refuses to accept it. Hassan expresses hope that Bahri will change his mind, emphasizing that they need him back in the village, but Bahri simply tells Hassan to give his regards to everyone there. That night, while Bahri is sleeping, a ghostly figure slowly approaches him, moving silently through the darkness. The ghost comes very close, and in the next moment, we see it hovering right above him. But when Bahri opens his eyes, he finds no one there. However, he hears strange, unsettling sounds coming from outside. Ignoring these noises, he lies down and tries to fall back asleep, but is suddenly startled by a painful voice calling out for help, a voice that also calls his name. Intrigued and cautious, Bahri steps out of the garage to investigate the source of the haunting voice, and as he searches, the voice grows louder and more distressing. Suddenly, he comes across Ratna, who desperately pleads with him for help. He is shocked to see her chained and bound, but before he can react, Ratna is abruptly dragged away by an unseen force into the darkness, leaving Bahri stunned. Overwhelmed by the strange events, Bahri decides to return to his village immediately, and his bus passes by a car that has been involved in an accident, but he does not pay much attention to it. That night, Bahri arrives at his village, where Hassan welcomes him, and Bahri says he wants to help Ratna as best he can. Hassan asks if he is heading to the pesantren, and Bahri replies yes, as he wants to see Abba. He then asks Hassan if he is coming along, but Hassan says he can't, and assures they will meet again tomorrow. At the boarding school, Abba asks his wife, Fatima, to make fried fish and sour soup for Bahri, and when Bahri says he still remembers his favorite food, Abba replies that he could never forget anything about him, though he feels he has changed. Fatima then asks Bahri what good news he brings for Abba, and Bahri answers that he met Hassan yesterday and realized how much he missed them both. Abba asks if it is about Ratna, but Fatima quickly changes the subject by asking where Bahri will stay that night. Bahri admits he doesn't know, so Abba tells him that his old room is still empty and he can sleep there. Abba then begins coughing and tells Bahri that if he weren't so sick, he would help Ratna and the rest of the village as well. In a flashback, Ratna returns a book to Bahri that she borrowed from him and thanks him, saying it's a good book. Bahri says, People said Majnu went crazy because of his love for Layla, saying Majnu's love and bond with Layla is so beautiful. But Ratna says there is nothing good about a love that is lonely and full of suffering. Just then, Asap arrives and sits between them, teasing Ratna by saying he wants to propose to her. Feeling uncomfortable, Ratna excuses herself, saying she has a class to attend. The next morning, Bahri tells Abba that his life has been ruined because someone spread lies about him, and now everyone he once knew wants nothing to do with him. To which Abba replies, then they were never his true friends. Bahri says he lost everything, explaining that people accused him of causing the death of one of his patients, and recalls that Abba once told him that God helps those who help others, to which Abba gently reminds him that life and death are determined by fate, and that the patient's death was not his fault. Bahri goes on to say that his mother's heart was broken by the scandal, which affected her health until she passed away while he was still in prison, and he wasn't even allowed to attend her funeral or bury her. Abba tells him to be strong and let it go, but Bahri says it's not that easy. Abba asks when he last prayed, and Bahri replies that he has never stopped praying since childhood. So why did all this still happen to him? Abba says you cannot change the past, and he can only hope that God has beautiful plans for him. He reassures Bahri that everything happens for a reason, then asks what the real reason is for his return, and Bahri says he wants to help Ratna. Later, Bahri visits Ratna's house with Hassan and asks Hesti about her condition, to which Hesti explains that since Ratna returned home, she hasn't spoken a single word. With tears in her eyes, she begs Bahri to help, saying that if it means Ratna will die, then so be it, because watching her suffer like this is breaking her heart. Bahri assures her that he will do his best, and just then, Ratna suddenly begins to scream in pain. Bahri goes inside to see Ratna, but the moment she sees him, her screams grow even louder. Witnessing her condition leaves Bahri deeply shaken and disturbed, and unable to bear it. He rushes out of the room. Hassan asks what's wrong, and Bahri says he can't do it, to which Hassan tries to calm him, reminding him that the Bahri he once knew would never give up so easily, and urges him to listen to his heart, saying it will tell him what to do. He then says he thinks his presence there would only be a distraction, and suggests picking him up later that night instead. Bahri goes back inside, and Ratna reaches out her hand, asking for help, which he hesitantly takes, and asks Hesti to bring him a bowl of warm water. As Hesti leaves to get it, Bahri gently tells Ratna, "Let's pray." He begins reciting the prayers, and Ratna tries to join in, but her condition prevents her from speaking clearly. Still, the prayers bring her some relief, and she eventually drifts into sleep. Bahri sits beside her, reciting prayers for a long time, but Ratna's condition worsens, and she begins moaning in pain. Sensing that the prayers are not working, Bahri switches to different verses, and suddenly, Ratna's reflection in the mirror sits up and lets out a piercing scream, as if unable to withstand the power of the prayers. Moments later, the lantern extinguishes, yet Bahri continues his prayers, and after a while, Ratna's moans fade, her body relaxes, and she finally drifts into sleep. Bahri steps out to look for Hesti, but as soon as he leaves, Ratna suddenly opens her eyes. After a while, Bahri and Hesti return to check on Ratna, but they are shocked to find her bed empty. Alarmed, they both rush out to search, and Bahri tells Hesti to look around the back. After Hesti leaves, Bahri searches for Ratna inside the house, and as he looks around, Ratna is seen slowly passing behind him in another room. But in the very next moment, she appears beside him and blows out the lantern. Bahri tells Hesti that he needs to relight the lamp, who lights it and says she couldn't find Ratna at the back. Just then, he spots Ratna outside the window, and without wasting a moment, they both rush out of the house to look for her. As they search around, Ratna is seen sitting on the roof, and when Bahri turns, he is shocked to see her there. Hesti also looks up and calls for Ratna to come down, but the demon inside her only laughs before she suddenly lunges at Hesti. Bahri quickly reacts and tries to pull Ratna back, but she rises and hurls him aside. Desperate, Bahri calls out to her, insisting he knows she is still in there. but the demon declares that Ratna is dead, just like everyone else he once treated. Then, she tears her dress and taunts. "Is this what you want?" Bahri pleads with Ratna to pray to God, but the demon crawls toward him, mocking his faith as weak and accusing him of pretending to be holier than others. It then seizes him by the neck, choking him as he struggles, and at the same time, Abba is shown praying fervently at his place, interceding for Bahri. Finally, Bahri surrenders everything to God and begins praying with all his strength. And suddenly, the demon screams, and Ratna collapses to the ground. Bahri and Hesti rush to check on her, and with her final breath, Ratna asks her mother for forgiveness before dying in their arms. The next morning, as they carry Ratna for burial, the villagers hold their noses against the foul stench of her body. As the procession moves, Burhan asks Bahri why he would carry a whore's body through the village. Bahri warns him to watch his mouth, but Dadang argues that her burial will desecrate their cemetery. Bahri counters that it is the living, not the dead, who bring hatred. Burhan tells him to find another place, but Bahri refuses, insisting Ratna has the right to rest beside her father. Later that night, as Hesti prays at home, a photo of Risa suddenly falls from the wall, and at that very moment, Ratna's hand bursts out from the grave. Meanwhile, Yanti tells Asaf that their baby needs proper nutrition and suggests giving the child some meat. Asap replies, they'll have to wait until he gets paid, and Yanti then asks him to at least bring her a raw mango, mentioning that Jalong has a tree. After Asap leaves, Yanti draws water from the well, but seeing a snake in the bucket, she falls to the ground in shock. The bucket tips over, and the snake slithers toward her, heightening her terror. Trembling, she scrambles toward the house, only to suddenly sense a ghostly figure standing outside. But when she turns, no one is there. Somehow, she manages to pull herself up with the support of the wall, yet the moment she pulls back the curtain, Ratna's ghost appears right in front of her, causing Yanti to collapse and fall unconscious. At the same time, Ratna's corpse is seen half emerged from the grave. The next morning, Asap mourns, blaming himself for not being able to protect his baby. And when Dadang asks what happened, Asap says he had waited so long for his firstborn, only for it to die. Dadang tells him to be strong, but Asap says it's easier said than done. Dadang sits beside him and says Bahri is the one responsible, because he buried Ratna in their village, to which Asap vows not to let Bahri get away with this, saying he has to pay, and Dadang agrees with him. Meanwhile, Abba asks Bahri what's bothering him, to which Bahri tells him that he prayed for Ratna last night, and just when he thought everything was going well, Abba cuts him off, saying, "You don't pray with your mouth, you pray with your heart, and you can't expect God to hear your prayers if you're still filled with doubt." He tells Bahri that he must let go of the past, and just then, Fatima steps out and tells Abba that he has visitors. Later, Bahri asks Hassan why it isn't over, and Hassan says maybe Ratna still has something to tell him. Bahri then asks what happened to her after he left the village, and Hassan explains that a few years ago, after he left, her father drowned in debt, and in desperation, he took his own life. After that, people began harassing Ratna and Hesti, even threatening to kill them, until one day Ratna disappeared. When Bahri asks where she went, Hassan admits he doesn't know, but says her mother eventually started paying off their debts. Thinking that Burhan might have answers, they rush to his house, only to be met with anger. Burhan accuses Bahri of causing trouble since returning, and when Bahri says he's done nothing wrong, Burhan retorts that he already told him he helped a whore. He then claims that when he was working as a nightclub bouncer, he saw Ratna there himself. According to him, she was very popular, entertaining rich clients who paid her millions of rupiah, and she even gave him a cut to keep him quiet. Bahri asks what happened then, to which he says she eventually became ill and retired, probably because she didn't take care of herself and allowed men to do as they pleased without protection. That night, when Burhan's wife returns home, he asks her how Yanti is doing, and she replies that she's still depressed. She then excuses herself and goes inside, leaving Burhan alone. A little later, he hears someone outside softly calling his name. At first, he ignores it, but when the voice calls again, he gets up and steps outside to check. He follows the eerie sound into the forest, where, behind a tree, Ratna's ghost lurks, and as he turns to leave, she calls out his name. Terrified, he forces himself to look back, and slowly looks towards that tree, but by then, Ratna's ghost has disappeared. Suddenly, he senses someone standing behind him, but as he turns to look back, the ghost moves and comes behind him, and when he looks in the other direction, the ghost goes back to the same place and calls out his name once more. In the next moment, it appears right beside him, making him scream in terror. Overcome with fear, he runs toward his home. Meanwhile, Danang is riding his bike through the forest when it suddenly feels heavier, and glancing into the mirror, he sees Ratna's ghost behind him. Startled, he stops and turns around, but no one is there. Shaken, he nervously challenges the ghost to show itself, and as he rides ahead, the ghost appears once more. Meanwhile, Lisa asks Burhan if something is troubling him, but he remains silent. Trying to ease his tension, she leans in and kisses him, to which he kisses her back. But as they lie down, Lisa transforms into Ratna's ghost, who mockingly asks him how he is. Burhan begins trembling with fear, while Ratna bursts into laughter at the sight of his terror. After a while, Lisa opens the door and is horrified to see Burhan's lifeless body hanging from the ceiling. Meanwhile, Bahri admits he has failed, but Abba reminds him that a person's time of death is already written. And when Bahri says people keep blaming him, Abba replies that they cannot force others to believe. He adds, this is a battle he must fight, just as every religious man has before him, and that people may call them crazy or evil, but in the end, they are still human, and they must keep fighting. Abba warns him never to fall for the devil's tricks, explaining that when someone dies, they are free from worldly ties and return to the spirit world. So did Ratna. She could no longer carry her unfinished matters. Bahri laments what has become of the village, but Abba tells him that even God cannot change a person's mind unless they are willing to change. Bahri says he isn't strong enough to save them all, to which Abba reminds him that he must answer to God for how he used the gift he was given when his own time comes. Meanwhile, Hesti pleads with God to forgive her daughter's sins, saying she is returning her to his embrace. Abba tells Bahri that as long as he doubts God, there is nothing he can do. He urges him once more to leave the past behind, reminding him that perhaps the task feels so heavy because he is one of the chosen ones. Later, a man is preparing for prayers when he suddenly turns around and begins screaming. Bahri rushes out and discovers that an entity has possessed the man. Bahri urges the man to pray to God, saying that he knows he is inside. But at that moment, another girl becomes possessed. Bahri rushes to the girl and tries to calm her down, but she violently pushes him away, calling him a hypocrite. Meanwhile, yet another man falls under possession. Bahri orders the others to hold the girl down and begin praying, then hurries to confront the possessed man, urging him to pray as well. But at that moment, the previously possessed individuals advance toward him, and one of them suddenly pounces and knocks him down. Regaining his composure, Bahri commands everyone to make the possessed sit, but the girls, speaking in demonic voices, sneer that his prayers will not work on them. Unshaken, Bahri instructs everyone to recite a verse, and as he begins, the others join in, their voices growing stronger together. Hearing this, the possessed start shrieking in agony, and after a tense struggle, the demons finally release their bodies. Just then, a man rushes to Bahri and tells him it's Abba. Bahri quickly hurries inside, where Abba, struggling with his final breaths, hands him his tasbih, and with trembling lips, Abba recites his last prayers before peacefully departing from this world. The next day, during Abba's funeral, some villagers call out to Bahri, asking him to come outside. When Bahri steps outside, Asaf tells him that the villagers already know what happened at the Pesantren. Fatima pleads with them not to cause a scene, and to respect Abba, to which Dadong apologizes for the disturbance, but insists that Bahri should leave the village. Fatima asks them to stop bullying him, but Bahri calmly says it's all right. He should leave to honor Abba's name. Meanwhile, Ratna's friend visits her grave, only to be horrified when she sees Ratna's body half emerged from it. Later, she ends up on the same bus as Bahri, and seeing her in tears, Bahri gently asks if she needs help, to which she replies that she just wants to leave the village, saying everyone had been cruel to her friend. Bahri asks for her friend's name, and she answers, Ratna. She then asks if he knows her, adding that she used to work with Ratna in the city. In a flashback, Burhan confronts Ratna, reminding her that she still owes him money. Ratna insists that she already paid him yesterday, but Burhan asks how she expects to repay her father's debt if she only gives him such a small amount each month. He adds that, with all the charms she wears, she could easily manage to pay him more. Bahri asks if she knows who placed all those charms on Ratna, and she replies that she doesn't know, but Ratna once told her it was a friend of Burhan's from the village. She adds that Ratna explained how the charms demanded animal blood as sacrifice, and over time, the demands kept escalating until they finally required the sacrifice of someone she loved. But the only one left was her mother, so Ratna refused, and after that, she grew ill and eventually returned home. Bahri returns to the village and is confronted by Asef and Jilang. He says he only wants to clear Ratna's name, but Asep strikes him down. Jilang pulls him back up, only for Asep to strike him again. But this time, Bahri fights back, flooring Jilang before turning on Asep and managing to knock him down as well. He then asks Asep, who placed the charms inside Ratna's body, and Asep blurts out Danang's name. Just then, Hassan arrives, and Bahri tells him it was Danang who put the charms in Ratna's body. They both arrive at Danang's house and find the door left ajar. Hassan says, "Let's go in," but Bahri stops him, saying it's too dangerous and that he should handle it alone. Cautiously, Bahri steps inside, and in one of the rooms, he finds it filled with black magic items. Before he can make sense of it, Danang silently approaches from behind and strikes him, knocking him unconscious. Next, as Bahri lies unconscious, Danang asks why he had to help Ratna. He says, Ratna was greedy and always wanted more, which is why she filled her body with charms. But when the time came to pay the price, she refused. He says, once you sign a contract with the devil, you'll keep paying until the end of time. He then grabs a dagger and declares that he used her to spread fear throughout the village, and fear would make people forget their God, making it easier for him to draw them away from faith. He adds that many more will sell their souls to the devil, and with each one, his black magic will only grow stronger. At that moment, Abba's words echo in Bahri's mind. You cannot expect God to answer your prayers if you still doubt him. Danang says he can join Ratna in hell, claiming that this time even God cannot save him. But Bahri prays silently in his heart, and as Danang lunges at him, he suddenly awakens and stops him. Summoning all his power, Bahri strikes Danang aside and hurls a lantern at him, setting the house ablaze. The two clash fiercely, but Danang soon gains the upper hand, overpowering Bahri. However, Bahri manages to seize a stick and delivers a crushing blow, knocking Danang to the floor. Bahri rushes out of the burning house when suddenly Ratna's spirit appears before him. Stunned, he slowly rises to his feet, and she thanks him. She then lifts her hand toward him, and Bahri raises his in return. But just before their hands can meet, the house collapses behind them, and Ratna's spirit vanishes. The next day, Ratna is given a proper burial, and Bahri is once again accepted by the villagers as an ustadz. Later, two policemen approach Bahri and ask where they can find Hassan's family. Bahri replies that Hassan lives alone, but offers to pass along a message if it's urgent. One of the officers explains that they only came to inform him that Hassan had been in an accident. He had fallen into a coma, and a few days ago, he passed away in the hospital. Confused, Bahri asks which Hassan they are talking about, to which the officer shows him Hassan's license, and it is revealed that the car involved in the accident that night was Hassan's. In that moment, Bahri realizes that the Hassan who had been helping him in the village all along was actually Hassan's spirit. Gathering himself, Bahri tells the officers that he is Hassan's family, and if they don't mind, they can bring his body to the Islamic boarding school. After the officers leave, Bahri softly thanks Hassan, and Hassan nods with a simple smile, and the movie ends here.